All right, everybody. Welcome to the new Stonecutter Records Recording Studios YouTube channel, where we're trying to offer up some value and tasty information for all you recording enthusiasts and gearheads and musicians and people in general, because I'm very fortunate to know a very special group of people. And one of them is here with us today, Christopher Hambone Cameron, who, you know, aside from being a really dear friend, is somebody I've had the pleasure to work with in the past, and really probably one of the greatest Hammond organ players, keyboardists, but, you know, the Hammond organ is a real specialist instrument. In addition to his work with his band, Jambon, and he has some of the following credits of some of the most premier recording sessions ever done in Chicago. During the past 3 decades, he has written and arranged music for numerous national television and radio commercials and played on thousands more for clients such as Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Budweiser, and Ford. Some of the people that he's played with over the years include the heavyweights like John Mayall, Richie Havens, Etta James, Freddie Jones, Sonia Dada, Dave Mason, Dolly Parton, and Mississippi Heat, Big Twist, and the Mellow Fellows. So, you know, there's the whole live performance experience, and then, you know, the recording on a lot of records with, you know, people like Mavis Staples, the Commodores, Ramsey Lewis, Bob Dylan, Rick Danko, and Kevin Christopher. So without further ado, let's jump right into this. This is going to be fun. Thanks for coming down, Chris. How you doing?
I'm glad to be here. I'm worried about the crickets, but...
Oh, my God. Well, it sounds like they're have a perfect fundamental and a couple different harmonics. Wow.
It's a little tense in here, but I'm trying to get with the vibe. Anyway, happy to be here, man.
Oh, thanks for coming. This is going to be a lot of fun. And, you know, obviously there's a deep dive that we're going to want to do about the organ and stuff. But real quick, let's go back in the time machine a little bit. What was your introduction to, you know, real vintage keys, the organ, music, whatnot?
Well, I was an obsessed tennis player. And then the boogie woogie bug bit. I grew up in Libertyville, which I always said a hotbed of R&B. You know,
that's on Earth.
But my earliest recollection of wanting to be a musician was seeing Booker T and MGs on American Bandstand, and I wanted to be ducked on. The bass player was running around with a tennis racket. But I loved
Green Onions, right? Green
Onions, yeah. I loved Otis Spann, who was Muddy Waters' piano player, and that's really sort of where it started for me. I'm a blues piano
like
player.
60,
the late 30s, end of the Civil War, man. I did my first union recording session at Curtis Mayfield's studio on the north side when I was 22.
Yeah, he's a Chicago
and that would have been,
right?
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, Curtis was, you know, Curtom Records. So I was 22, so this would have been 76, 77, around there.
Oh, wow.
And then I was on the road with John Mayall not long after that with a guitar player named Harvey Mandel, who played in Canned Heat at Woodstock and played lead on one Stones record, and Sugarcane Harris, electric violin player that played with Frank Zappa. So
and
I
was playing
Rhodes and Moogs.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Which was unusual. As a matter of fact, this mini Moog of mine, I got from John Mayall. I bought it from John. And it's a cherished instrument. Yeah, I used to go see those guys, Harvey and Sugarcane, when I was 15 and 16. There was a juice bar called Alice's Revisited on the north side, and you could get in. And I used to see these guys, and I was like, man, why aren't they bigger than, you know, the Allman Brothers? And then I was on the road with them when I was 22, so it was real cool.
How'd you get introduced and get the gig?
Well, I had just rehearsal space, you know, not unlike what you have here, just a place where things can happen. I mean, this is much more of a full-blown recording facility. We had a place called The Dungeon, which was at 11 East Superior.
I like it.
And it was a coach house right in the back. And this was an amazing gathering point. And I was a big fan of Harvey. I mean, I had I still love what he does. I mean, there's not a lot of rock guitar players that you hear two notes and you know who that is. You know, Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, Carlos Santana. Harvey is one of those guys. Super
Even
influential. Yeah, I mean, just like the whole hammer-on thing that Eddie Van Halen took to the moon, which spawned generations of bad speed metal guitar players. Every once in a while, you get a hammer-on guys that are
kind of rooted
cool.
in classical.
But Harvey was the first guy to put that on a record. So anyway, I was just in the right place at the right time. They were looking for a keyboard player. And so I got the gig, and then shortly thereafter, Mayall came to town, and it was cheaper to have Harvey's band do this Midwest run of dates than to bring guys in from the West Coast. And he liked the band so much, we were the new band. So, and then fast forward a few years later, I wound up acquiring the Moog from John, and I did one record with him and a bunch of tours, and then his house in Laurel Canyon burned down, and it wasn't like you got canned, you sort of never got called.
Right. That's quite a story.
The band went from 9 pieces to 4 playing the same places, but he's a great guy and amazing. We did one record together, and it's an amazing lineage to be a part of, and I just felt really lucky to be doing that.
It's really cool to look back on that stuff and see the genesis of all the cool music that was being done. Fast forward to today, you have your own band, and you're the leader now, and you're putting the whole thing together, and it's quite a piece of work, this band of yours. We're going to go back a little bit.
Massive and unwieldy, but cool.
We'll skip back and forth a little bit historically, but let's go to the present. Tell us a little bit about Jambon.
Well, this is what happens when, I've always written, okay? My thing, I always used to say, I always try to write with guys that have a deal. So I've been lucky to have some tunes recorded by some pretty known people. The Commodores cut one of my tunes, Richie Havens.
Oh, cool.
I've had stuff in 4 or 5 big Hollywood movies, Under Siege and Holes, and through Andy Davis, who's a Chicago guy, and that, the studio team, his brother Richie Davis is a great studio guitar player, and we've written together, and I've been fortunate enough to work on that stuff. So anyway, along the way...
So you're an industry cat.
Well, yeah, I always just wanted to live in Chicago and make records. And I mean, I've done a million commercials and industrial films and all kinds of other stuff, but really...
We'll get into that because you were in the heyday of commercials,
well,
too.
Yeah, I mean... It was
we'll get back to that.
Very fortunate to be like in the last generation sort of union recording musicians.
Right.
And it's I love but I really love making records. I mean, that's really the thing. Everything was always sort of in service of that. I just wanted to live in Chicago and make records, and that's still happening. It's a different climate now.
But you learned so much from all these people and all these things you did. Now I'm saying you got your own band. It's like we're going to talking about maybe doing a new record. It's like what's the goal now? Is it any different? I mean, the music actually is very of the same spirit, but this is 2022.
It's, what got me around to starting a band. I had played with a group called Sonia Dada for, I don't know, close to 15 years, 6 records, and #1 record in Australia, and really wonderful singers, sort of 3 gospel singers in front of kind of a hippie rock band. And that's
Paris,
where
Michael,
we met in and around. We've known each other so long, it's hard for me to remember exactly when we met. It was
Phases of the Moon.
It was at CRC, Chicago
CRC.
Recording Company, because you were the guy. So anyway, over the course of time, I had hit a point where I had taken about a 20+ year break from leading bands. I was always writing, always working, but I was a studio rat. I had a million things going on, and I liked the variety of it. But it was time. I had a bunch of songs. You didn't want to get hit by a bus and not do this. And so I wound up just telling my wife I'm chopping the front of the house off and starting a band and making a record. Sorry,
Right, well,
honey.
Sonia Dada sort of wound down a little bit for a multitude
Sonia Dada
of
had
reasons.
run its course. So the Jambon is the two of the singers from Sonia Dada, Michael Scott and Sean Christopher, who are great,
Amazing.
as good as singers get. I got a Grammy nomination with a band called Liquid Soul, which is still going, which is sort of a jazz funk. They call it acid jazz, but it's an amazing
They
band.
were nominated for Grammy.
And
right?
so, and Tommy Sanchez plays guitar, and he was in that band. Alan Burrows, who's played with Charles Earland and Miles. Kahari Parker, who we lost on drums, unfortunately.
That's a shame.
Great, wonderful guy and amazing talent. Ron Hall on bass, and Jose Rossi on percussion, who talked me. Jose did the last. This is, it's a lot of backstory. Jose did the last Sonia Dada tour and played his way into the gig. He knew somebody on the crew in Denver, and he came and sat in, and it was like he had always been there.
He's got a multi-instrumentalist percussionist.
He's a spectacular record maker. I mean, he's played. He was in Weather Report for 2 records after the band after Jocko. So Omar Hakim and Victor Bailey. He was with Robert Palmer for about 10 years. LaBelle for more than a decade. He's recorded with Talking Heads and Cameo and Power Station, which is a Duran Duran.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Puerto Rico Symphony Orchestra. So Jose said, what are you doing with these tunes, man? You should start a band. And so eventually it became much more my band than I was the guy that needed to start a band and make a record. And it's so
right.
And it was
somebody had to pick up the torch a little bit.
Well,
too.
it was like either I could just declare it my thing and just go get the people I wanted to get and go do what I needed to do, or it wasn't going to happen. And so that's what happened. And we
for better or worse, now you get to do it all.
Yeah, it's a very different climate now, because I always focused on writing and playing.
Right.
If I need to record, I'll go get a guy in a room.
Right.
An expert, a professional, someone like you. But when the kids were going to starve under a bridge, I got Pro Tools about 20 years ago,
Sure.
and it's like, I'm an engineer.
I've heard about this Pro Tools stuff.
Right. But I very much grew up in the generation of a great band in a great room with a great engineer, and that's the way our first record was made. You were there because you tracked it and did an incredible job. And we did 11 tunes in 2 days with the whole band writing and playing and singing at the same time. And then it took the better part of a year to finish it. But that initial performance,
we had everybody set up
band.
live in the same room.
It's people vibing. It's an ensemble art form.
Now, I mean, all those names we mentioned, all these, great players, there's so much to talk about. Let's talk about this thing right here. This Hammond organ a little bit before, so you got your early influences, and there's so many great tunes from Deep Purple to Booker T and MGs, the Green Onions. There's some very distinct things on the organ. What made you fall in love with this particular instrument?
Well, I'm really a blues piano player at the core. I backed into a sub-career as an organ guy along the way. I played in a band when I was in my teens with my brother, who's a guitar player, with another guy that played Hammond. And I played Rhodes electric piano, and we did all the Allman Brothers stuff, but it was 2 keyboards instead of 2 guitars. And I was always really interested in the organ, but I was always trying to play it like a piano. And it's I had to realize
such a specialty instrument.
It was a real different thing. I had to realize I was a piano player before I could ever be an organ player. So this was about 1981. I had toured with Mayall, and the Harvey thing had kind of, was put on the back burner. And so I got asked to join a band called Big Twist and the Mellow Fellows, which was on Alligator, just the local Chicago blues label.
Bruce Iglauer, the blues
and Twist was a fabulous, a great band, a big horn section. And I came in, I got sick of trying to play boogie woogie on a Rhodes piano because you couldn't really do it. And they had these Yamaha electric Grands, which are CP70s, which you couldn't really boogie woogie on those either. I always said
of Midi.
If you would have sold you the middle 3 octaves, I would have been interested. But the string length was short. It was like moving a piano. The high end was sort of like weird banjo strings. So I found this organ that I play in a kid's basement, and it's a 1949 BV.
That's the same one you got now?
It's the same one I have now.
didn't know that.
And I basically learned how to play on the instrument that I have. Now this is an A100, which is a B3 in a different box. And this is 1953 to 73 probably. And this is the most famous one. This is the one everybody wants. The one that I play actually predates this. It's the last one they made before they started making this. So, and for me, I play a cut down as well. It's in a portable case. So I never had a pedal board, a foot pedal board. So for me, the organ was very much an ensemble instrument playing in a band with a bass player. I mean, I can do the left hand. I can walk some bass, but that's where this thing lives for me, is that Stax bag, Booker T and the MGs,
I love
Billy Preston.
I mean, any song that's got a really distinctive organ part, it gives you that soul, that warmth, that heart.
Yeah.
The thing that I want to point out is like what you were saying, like a piano player can technically play the organ, but the multitude of ways you can express the sound and settings on, this is before MIDI, and there's literally an amazing combination of sounds and tones you can get off this, and you have to know how to, like, from using the volume pedal to switching to Leslie fast to slow to doing different presets to the stuff that's built in. It's very deep.
It's a total different thing, and really, because this is 1935 technology. Okay, that's when the Model A came out. It's additive synthesis in its purest form, right?
Right.
You've got 9 sine waves, right? So there's 10,000 possible drawbar combinations on a B3. Just when you think you've heard everything this thing will do, guess what? You have it, And it's nothing has the dynamic range, and they're unbelievable things.
Before you get even deeper into that, like, what's one of your favorite organ songs that's so distinctive?
The first thing I ever learned how to play was Green Onions.
I freaking love this song. Getting the the bass and the growl. All right, so let the...
Sorry, man.
I could listen to that all day.
Well, I could play it all day, and I have been known to do that. But
that's a great example of kind of a gritty, soulful, sort of dirty. Almost, it's like bluesy dirty. Then you can go even dirtier, like Deep Purple sound.
Well, then you're jumping ahead a couple decades. But this guy likes to rock big drums. When you look up big drums in the dictionary, wherever you are, you see Chris Steinmetz's smiling face. So Just saying, if you want to move a little air, this guy. So the British guys, you got into
John Lord,
high power. Yeah. Okay, what happens when you turn it up? See, basically, what it really is, if you want to rock, all other keyboards are toys. Okay, essentially, right? You're talking about little teeny rubber, small girly man instrument that goes, it's like. It's the thing.
That's dirty. That's got some teeth.
It's the thing.
So now
you play that on anything else, you're on a cruise ship. Let's do the rock. Let's do the rocking thing. Oh, it's very good.
Okay, so that's a tone thing with the sort of overdrive and the
What
Leslie.
happens when you turn it all the way up? All right. It's
so,
like,
but that's not even messing with the Leslie's fast and slow stuff yet. So, okay, while we're on the tone, let's go the opposite. So another thing is in churches and the gospel, the clean, like angelic voices with the soul you can bring out of something too that's pretty and warm. Oh, man. So beautiful. Okay, so I see you over there doing something with your left hand.
let me tell you about the glory of the Hammond organ.
Testify.
You can bring the entire church.
Testify, Hambone.
And then the little bunny said, anyway, there are a crazy amount of noises that you can make with this thing. It is, and they're very expressive instruments, and that's why they're still in use. So 10,000 possible drawbar combinations. You got a chorus, split chorus and vibrato for each keyboard. You've got presets over here for instantaneous recall of these 9 drawbars. So
we're getting that, right?
Right, and those are hardwired in the back. If you want to go in and rewire these, and this is 1935, instantaneous, right? And you have upper and lower manuals, so you can have a bass line. You can have that on the bottom. You can have the big guns on the top. It's got percussion, which is like designed to be like a mallet, like a marimba or a vibraphone. It's a little point that's on the front of the sound. It's the thing is that there's an incredible array of tonal capabilities, and a big part of playing this thing is the dance. That the web you can weave with all of this stuff, and you bring that to a song. So you can go from the little teeniest whispering, quiet little,
working the volume pedal.
Right, and then all of a sudden the brontosaurus comes in. And it can be in the same tune. So you have this crazy amount of possibilities. And it's the thing that the other thing is that different from a piano is everything you do on this is a big deal. Like piano, you're used to voicing stuff. You're voicing stuff real wide, real spread out, right? This thing it's like a few notes can get you to the same place.
Yeah, one of the things I love the most, and I've requested it from you and everybody that knows how to work one of these things, is even if you just do a pad of a simple chords like angels in the background, like background vocals almost, and then that's where you can really take advantage of like stuff with the Leslie. So you're playing in like the verse and you're doing a pad, and you got the speed going slow. So you're coming up on the change to the chorus, and like a couple hours before that, on the downbeat of the chorus, you flip the switch, and then it goes to fast, and then it gives it this energy, and then you go back into the verse, you slow it back down into the Doppler effect.
There's nothing on the planet like it, and it takes time to learn how. That's a big part. Running the Leslie is a huge part of the thing. I'm assuming you went through all of that.
We did, but give me your slow to fast demonstration.
You have fast and slow. You have everything over 800 is coming out of the top through the flutes. Everything below 800 is coming out of the bottom.
Cycles per second.
So you have 2 rotors changing speeds in opposite directions and at different speeds, right? So you not only have the Doppler effect, which is an actual pitch change, you have a volume change, and it's very, very difficult to. If I had $1 for every Leslie simulator I've been given, I'd be buying pizza for the team, right? It's very hard to replicate what that does.
Well, that's how it was invented, right? The guy that came along was a big fan of pipe organs, and he wanted to be able. He noticed that hearing the sound arriving from different pipes on the pipe organ was a very unique thing to that, and that sort of led to the Leslie.
Once they put these two together, and Hammond would disavow. They didn't want anything to do with the Leslie. Leslie. Oh, no.
Yeah, no, they didn't like each other.
Eventually, you never see a B3 without a Leslie, and it's a huge part of the thing, especially in an R&B context. They're
so much soul.
really, the thing is, you can play, I always say you can play half as many notes on this thing,
right?
You know,
that's what I was saying,
because
just
you have such a wonderful tone to work with, and just zoom up to the highest note that makes sense. Hit the Leslie. Oh, you're a genius, dude. You're a genius. You know.
Yeah, that's a gliss, right? That's a gliss up and a gliss down.
Love the One You're With is this tune I always represent. Stephen Stills, right? Who wrote this? It was a great song, right? But Steve played the organ. So should we get Al Cooper? No. I got this. You know, what's he do?
Right. That's all you got to do.
You know,
in the beginning of that song, that's like the signature.
Yeah, and it's the perfect thing. But I will haul this. I still take my Hammond. Like if I play Buddy Guys, which I do once in a while, usually for CD release dates, like with Mississippi Heat, who's a band that I love that I've made probably a half a dozen records with. I'm still the nuts guy that will bring a real Hammond out there because Buddy will sit in and every once in a while he'll do a slow one, and it's like where you can hear the ice cubes clink in the glasses, right? And if you're oh my God. So, it's like play the chords, nudge Leslie every once in a while. It's like, dude, if you're playing some of the many alleged Hammond instruments, it's like, you're kind of.
Well, this would be a good time.
It's a cruise ship syndrome,
This would be a real good time for us to take a quick break real quick. Okay, and when we come back, I want to get into the difference between my A100 and yours because not only is there a lot of differences, but it's also tube and solid state. And we're going to talk about that. So stay tuned, people. We're going to be right back. All right, welcome back to the Stonecutter Records Recording Studios YouTube channel. And we are going to pick it up where we left off. So we were talking about the difference between the A100 and your X, which is a B3...
BV.
BV.
A 1949 BV.
All right.
Different generator.
In 30 seconds or less, tell me the difference.
Okay. My organ doesn't have chorus and vibrato because they hadn't invented it yet. So I have 9 drawbars. It's a little different generator. So this drawbar hops back up in that lower octave. On mine, it goes chromatic all the way down. And my organ doesn't have percussion because they hadn't invented that either. So that is an add-on unit made by a company called Trek. So those are the differences in the instrument. And then my Leslie is bi-amped and has outboard crossover and power and relays. And it's 10 times the power of the box.
And it came that way?
There. Oh, no.
Okay.
It's like the Millennium Falcon of Hammonds. I said it's
a few
may
upgrades.
Not look like much on the outside, but I made a lot of special modifications. And this was part of one of the things that's great about these. Everyone's different because you have 96 analog outputs on this. So every B3, every Leslie, they all have a little different thing, and some of them pair well together, and some of them don't. My big thing was I want to be able to do this all day long and have it be completely quiet when it's not doing that. And the thing with the original stuff, tubes will go, speakers will go. Right. The only way to get it to do that is to turn it all the way up. Right? So
and that's preamp and power amp distortion.
Everything is slammed. If you want to do that, you want to do that, you have to do that. So the other thing is I like the clean sound of the instrument, right? So this little flute, right? If you're playing with a couple guys with Marshall stacks, I can get that sound
loud and clean,
as loud and absolutely pristine. And on this,
still got some grit.
I want the overdrive to be a musical choice as opposed to a component of volume. And it was a lot of trial and error because there's voodoo involved when you start messing with the tone of the thing.
We're going to be lucky to have that organ pay us a visit. So we're going to cut that in too and show you the difference.
So I got rid of all the stuff that broke. and the big fat Leslie cables, the 22 starter pistol that goes off when you change speeds and you're playing a ballad. Oh baby, I love you. What
Right.
was that?
That's like when you click a switch
somebody
and it's
changed
so
the
loud.
speed on the Leslie. It's like,
painful.
oh my God, And it's a very high power rig, and it's like a guitar rig where you have a clean channel and a drive channel and parametrics, but it's very component specific, because at the end of the day, it's not just the power, it's the tone.
Right.
And so my thing was always, how do I get that with more control? So mine is like, it's absolutely mouse quiet when it's wide open and there's never any other artifacts, all of that sort of in between.
Yeah, I've had Bruce working on this organ for a while, and it's like, it's great, it's got that dirty tone and stuff, but I mean, you gotta clean the tube sockets, you gotta balance the levels perfectly.
It's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff.
But in its tone wheels, that's the thing. So
when you're getting the clean sound from your rig, I mean, still the big difference between that and a simulated MIDI organ, there's a lot of differences in the end result. Although they've done a pretty decent job of modeling some organs. I know it's a different animal.
It's a never-ending
pursuit.
thing. I mean,
it's kind of heavy to carry around, I think, is the
that's the thing. Mine is 325 pounds in the case, which is as little as you could get a full-size one to be. But they're
and that's a job in itself.
Right? No, it doesn't leave the house. Doesn't leave the house. Everything's cased. Everything rolls, but it does.
I remember doing sessions with you,
cast.
and your cartage guy would show up with like 4 hours before the session with a truckload of racks.
That was the nature of. That's a lot of what has changed now. Is that'll take you out of the box on a lot of smaller projects. So that's why half of the time when we're working together, things are going back and forth over the wire sometimes, because I'm in my house with all my instruments and my Steinway and all of this cool old stuff, and it's so
funny though. You'd be doing a 30-second jingle, and maybe you'd be playing like one little part, and you could show up with the beauty was that the commercials had the budget for the cartage and the triple scale. Like I brought all the instruments, and then he goes,
you never,
beep, okay, 30-second jingle over. It's like unplug all this stuff again.
That's a whole other discussion,
But the money was good.
You're flying. Well, no, it was, and what was great about it was, you're in a studio, you're making music. And see, this is the thing. We would, we would do jingles in the morning and we do records in the afternoon. And
it's like Wrecking Crew.
They would feed off of each other. Like Richie Havens, we did a whole record with Richie, and Richie was like the Amtrak guy, get on board, he would come in and sing that. Right. And it was phenomenally lucrative for him to do that. And plus it's Richie Havens, and then he loved the band and loved the vibe. We wound up doing, he cut one of my songs. We did a whole record.
It opened a lot of doors.
Great, I mean, all the time. Shoot,
those days are gone too. I mean, now most commercial houses have built-in studios and everything's MIDI. They don't want to spend the money to bring all the real musicians in anymore.
It's a very different environment, and that's part of the challenge of the infrastructure of the business that we've inhabited since our teens, probably,
Yeah, through all these episodes, I'll be doing various forms of bitching about that.
Yeah, but it's, I don't know, for me, I try to adapt. I don't want to be the latest, one more crabby guy looking in a rearview mirror at what I used to get paid and what I used to do. But it's very
with Bruce,
different.
I got into this great thing of like what he didn't like about vinyl and stuff like that. He's like, I got really sick of all the signal to noise ratio.
Well,
and I'm like, it's not really that charming to have a record scratch going through your favorite song.
I'm not a big vinyl guy. But I miss 2-inch tape. I miss the fat tape because it's, when you slam digital, and if it's you hit it too hard, it's game over. Right. You can't ever get it back. But when you slam tape, there's that tape compression thing.
It actually gets better before it gets worse.
And it's like
there's a sweet spot.
Perfect
chance to introduce this puppy because it's an electronic piece of equipment, but it's an analog synthesizer.
This instrument is in the Smithsonian. It's a monophonic analog synthesizer, so it plays one note at a time.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
So before they made the Mini Moog, Bob Moog made theremins, which are,
we got one over here behind you.
Right.
It's not a Moog, but it's a theremin.
This was a whole wall And then they said, well, let's make a portable instrument. So they went through 4 or 5 prototypes, and they wound up with the Mini Moog Model
And
D,
this is the small version.
Everything changed. Whereas this is subtractive analog synthesis, right? This is additive analog synthesis. So 9 sine waves that you can combine. Over here, you've got sine waves, saw wave, which is all the even harmonics, and 3 different pulse waves. So this is sort of a rounder one, and this is a skinnier one. So in addition to that, you can combine these together.
And by the way, I added that delay on there by your request, so it doesn't always have that delay.
Right.
But it sounds good, so we're leaving it.
Well, yeah, I like a little delay when I'm using this thing as a solo act. And you're also typically not always blowing through a Marshall. But anyway, it's
a Marshall given to me by the band Kiss.
By whom?
Kiss. I did a Kiss record.
way.
Yeah, they gave me this Marshall head.
Well, there you go.
It's pretty awesome.
So you have one note, but it's a badass note. So in addition to this, Bob invented...
Oh, you're on a first name basis. Bob Moog.
Dr. Moog.
Yeah.
The 24 dB to octave filter. So what you're doing is you're sweeping through the harmonics. You're subtracting the high harmonics, right? And you can control that over time. So he invented that stuff. He invented pitch and mod wheels. Like if you're a frustrated guitar player like me, you get one of these. So the glide, which is everything runs on control voltage. So instead of a bank of modules on a wall with wires, it's all here. So this glide control delays the voltage from the keyboard. And it's low note priority. So 1 note at a time, but it's the lowest one you have. You got noise generators. So if you're,
Yeah. It's like
Ice Station Zebra, right? When the North
there's
Pole,
a lot of songs that
the
start with that.
submarine, right, has risen up from the top. When suddenly a polar bear, no.
What did the Who use on Quadrophenia for all those arpeggiators?
That's another discussion. They had organ stuff.
Because they had that arpeggiator thing on
So
Bob
now we're
O'Reilly.
plugged into a Marshall with a delay, but so you got white noise, pink noise.
So low you can't hear it.
Exactly. So I have control voltage in a couple places here. I have a foot pedal on this as well. So I can sweep the filter with my foot. So they're amazingly playable things, and especially fun through a Marshall,
It's like Van Halen, man.
Anyway, it's a large, fun device.
Yeah, man, that's
and it will
an
do
earful.
a lot of things. The thing about this thing, the build quality, is Class A electronics, hand-wired discrete transistors, gold connectors. Like this is just
the engineering on this stuff is sick.
This is one
So
sine
good.
wave, the one oscillator. That's all it is. I mean,
It's
just
very
that
pure.
makes you want to play music on the thing. It's like it doesn't get any simpler than that, but it has a beautiful sound, and it's because it's hand made discrete transistors. The stuff that came later, the other thing about it is it's like an audio oil painting. Everything, whatever you have on these knobs, whatever you have on in front of you is the sound that you have, and you can interact
Yeah,
with
the
it.
expression. It's like it's not sort of the set it and forget it thing. It's a performance.
Well, it is.
And it's probably, you never do it quite the same twice.
There's nothing, it's the tactile sensation. Later on, they learned how to scan all these with a computer, so you could instantaneously recall the settings, right? But also, when you do that, you went away from discrete transistors and you went to chips. And so you can have the same thing dialed up, and it just doesn't sound like that. That's why 90% of, like, the keyboard bass you've heard on everything is coming out of a mini Moog. It'd be easier if we killed the delay.
All right, cool. Now I'm gonna turn up the distortion on the Marshall ones. It's really oh yeah, baby.
Get ready to blow some stuff up there, Captain.
Yeah.
You're fixing to blow.
One more. Yeah. Yeah, that's got some balls.
It's a wonderful thing, and it's instantaneous too. Like when you go away from CB and Gates, which is what this is, you go to MIDI. It's not the same.
Yeah,
This
Bruce
is
and I
the
had an interesting
fastest-
discussion about
it's
that.
Like it's
The speed of light.
extension of your body.
Yeah,
That's
speed of
how
light.
fast. So I have another one of these that's rack mounted and MIDI'd, and you can mix it with all the new stuff. But as a solo act, I can make it choke. It doesn't track like this. This is like, the physical relationship to the player. That's why they're making these again. They're making this instrument.
Right.
Now, you can't save the sound, you can't do anything, but you get that, And I have a couple of memory Moogs, which are 6 of these with a computer. That's the design.
They used to come with the big patch bay and stuff too.
Well,
The Matrix.
Bob Moog lost control of the company for a long time, and then near the end of his life, they got it back and they made the Voyager, which is basically this essential design, but the ability to save the programs. It would scan.
Yeah, the evolution to modern stuff is somewhere we'll pick it up on the next episode.
but
I really appreciate you bringing this down. Again, with the future of Jambon's new record coming up, we're going to see some of this stuff put into play again. And when we get acts down here, I'm going to get a chance to put them side by side a little bit, like you're saying. It's really a great way to do it.
It's a very different thing than you'll discover.
I recorded this one band.
I'm an unauthorized bastard child in the Hammond family. I take a tap off of the matching transformer. I got rid of everything. It's just like, and for a long time I was like, I can't get rid of the tubes. Oh, the tubes. So I had another set of relays so I could go from this exact thing to the bi-amp. And then after a while I was like, I like the control, but it's a dark art for sure. That would be an interesting conversation with Bruce because he's super steeped in this thing. And I went in with a shotgun 25 years ago and said, I have to have things working all the time.
Right.
I want to slam all day long. Every time I tell the box to wiggle, it's got to wiggle. And I don't want...
Because the last thing you want to do is be on any gig and be the one whose stuff doesn't work. And it's like, find the cable that's not plugged in, find the buzz or hum that's not plugged in. And that's true of guitars, of anything. But it's like the more stuff you have, the more you got to hook up. It's a fine art, even in the science of using the stuff. So, that's great for today. I appreciate you coming down and sharing this with me. One thing, let's end it with something fun. In this day and age, the music business has changed. The whole thing has changed. What is something that you would say to young cats that they should keep in mind as they plow through slamming electronic music?
Well, I don't know. For me, I love making records and I love playing music. Playing with other people is a big, that's something, you know, I like making records that are assembled. That's
Yeah.
cool. I'm into that whole thing. Is
Right.
you're going to sequence a whole record. That's an art unto itself. But what it feels like to have a kick-ass band honing an arrangement
Right.
in a room with a great engineer.
Yeah,
It's an
I mean,
ensemble. It's an ensemble art form. I'm not going to play the same. You got the fills in the second verse, so I'm going to clear out, man. That's your spot. You know what I'm saying?
It's great that you can do
That's the
everything
thing.
by yourself, but that doesn't mean you should. And the connection with other humans is what it's all about.
Yeah, I always say that just because you can endlessly screw with a piece of music after the fact doesn't mean you're necessarily improving it.
Yeah, that's
My
for sure.
thing is always, I want to get a performance. I want to capture a performance.
And that never ends.
Yeah, and I like, you know, there's nothing like playing music with people. You know, you get
And
stuff
thankfully,
that
we
way
can
you
start to
don't
do that again. You just got to be careful and, you know, approach things a little bit different. Okay, well, got your website is back online, and we're gonna have a follow up with this with you and Bruce. So we'll give all your how people can find you and reach you. And we're gonna get into more in depth stuff on some of the stuff you've done too. But thanks again for coming today, man.
Pleasure.
All right, sanitize me. No, I'm just kidding.
That's it. Bring it on.
All right, everybody, put the mask back on.
All right, put the Neumanns in my bag.